What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another Adobe Live. I hope y'all are feeling good on this Monday morning, afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. As always, thank you so much for joining us on Adobe Live. I want to remind y'all to, as always, join the Adobe Live community, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at Adobe Live on Instagram for the latest streams, updates, and more. I'm really excited for today as we're going to be joined by photographer Alexa Mazzarello as she walks through enhancing the speed of editing your work and cultivating your own style in Lightroom Classic. So I'm excited. I hope y'all are as well. Drop where you are joining from in the chat. I am joining from Phoenix, Arizona. And Alexa, how are you doing today, girl? Where are you joining us from?
Hi, I'm in Ottawa, Canada.
Oh, beautiful. I've never been to Canada. It's like on my
I know you
list of
gotta, yeah,
places to go.
I mean, it's big, but yeah.
Very, very much so.
Ottawa's the capital. Ottawa's the capital of Canada. So
Ah, beautiful,
special place.
beautiful.
Yeah.
What's the weather like there right now?
It's nice. It's like starting to become fall.
Mm.
But we're still like reaching 20 degrees. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Sorry. It's still
No.
like you can wear a t-shirt. You can wear a t-shirt still.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know here in Arizona, like we don't see seasons. So the fact that you're saying like it's starting to look like fall, I'm very jealous of that.
Yeah, yeah. It is nice. We definitely get 4 seasons.
Oh, I love it. And so I see y'all dropping where you're joining from in the chat. I see Brazil. Where else are you guys joining from? Get acquainted in the chat. I'm really excited for today's conversation. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, as always, just drop them in the chat and I'll make sure that I read them so that way Alexa can answer them. But Alexa, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the group and talk about what we'll be covering today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. This is full disclosure, my first Adobe Live, so I'm really excited to be here and to have you host, Idara. I've watched a few, and yeah, really excited to be here to share and also learn. So my name is Alexa Mazzarello. Again, I'm joining from Ottawa, Canada. A little bit about me to share kind of who I am and where I'll be sharing from. So I've been a photographer for 10 plus years. I work as a freelance photographer and artist, and I'm self-taught and directed. Like I said, Ottawa, Canada, we don't need to talk about that anymore. My background is actually not in the visual arts. I have a Bachelor of Arts in sociology, and I have a master's in public health. So coming from a different place, but a place that I actually really lean on in my work now. So my practice is a mix of a personal practice and lens-based work. I use a bunch of different, camera types and mediums, so analog and digital. I also do editorial photo assignments, commercial work, portrait and family work. So today I'm going to be focusing on my workflow that is specifically for my portrait and family work. So what I would call retail work. I'm a new mom, and I have a studio now in the backyard, which has really helped with my work-life balance. And so that's, again, where I shoot this family and portrait work, which is fantastic. I'm also a member of a mother artist collective here in Ottawa called 44.4. We collectively exhibit together. We're a group of 11 artists and mothers. And out of the studio in the backyard, it's also a bit of a community space for other artist mothers locally, and it's called Gallery 942. So I will keep going through here. So this is just a little bit of an overview of some of my commercial and editorial work and some portrait stuff. I kind of threw everything in here to give a sense of style and having a consistent style no matter the subject. I think probably, Idara, you can relate.
Yeah.
You do, a lot of stuff that comes your way.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's like, I don't know how I'm going to tackle that, but your style ends up coming out, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was just showing a little bit about across genres and showing how no matter what genre it is, there's a specific style to you that is going to be evident. And then I wanted to share just quickly about a personal project. So I feel like personal projects are super important to keep you engaged in your work, to draw in clientele and an audience that is going to have shared values with you and more likely to hire you. So this project is called Failure to Progress, and it mixes analog, digital, collage, textile. So failure to progress are the 3 words that were written on my medical file as to the reason I needed an emergency C-section during COVID in 2021. Quick overview. It was pretty traumatic. So I've made a lot of work about it. And this project has been really special to me. Just a few little wins that I wanted to share because I'm excited about it. And these are first time wins for me. I've been named as one of Photolucida's Critical Mass finalists for 2023 with this project. It's the first time that I've had work to enter that type of competition. And I don't know if anyone's heard of it, I'm on a book, Poetic Truths of Home and Motherhood, but this image here, Milk, was selected for that book. And you can buy this beautiful coffee table book anywhere books are sold. Okay, that's enough about me. Quickly moving along. So today's project is really about getting from camera, so from your raw files to your client as quickly as possible. Culling a photo session used to be my most hated task. It took the longest. It was really hard to decide what was good, what was better than the next, which to keep. So this workflow that I'm going to share today is really like how I've learned over the years to speed up this process, make it less painful for me, and get the images to the client faster. So we're going to use Lightroom Classic today, and I'm going to bring in a full studio session and get that down to 15 images that we'll edit together. So we're going to focus again on a studio portrait session. I'm going to edit in black and white. I'll talk a little bit about why I do that when we're in Lightroom. And the real focus today is on workflow efficiency. So organization, selecting the best of, batch editing, and really feeling confident in your workflow that it doesn't take too long so that you're maximizing efficiency.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open Lightroom. I think that's the first thing I will do. And then as I bring in my raw files, we can talk a little bit more about this. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. And if y'all have any questions, whether you are joining on Behance, YouTube, just go ahead and drop your questions and we'll be sure to talk about it. You're getting a lot of love from the chat, Alexa. Izzy is all here shouting you out, saying that she had your headshots done and said you were great. Love to shoot with natural light. And thank you, Jack, for dropping Alexa's website as well. So I'm excited. Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay. So thanks, everyone. That's really nice. If I'm talking too fast too, like send Idara some questions and you can have me go over something. So first thing here is these are my raw files. So raw files, whenever I'm working with a session, I drop everything onto my desktop when it is not yet final or sent to the client as signed off by me. So I don't know what your process is, Idara, but this was something that used to be really painful for me because my actual computer would be full because I had all this stuff on my desktop. So now I have a network storage system here at our house that my husband has graciously set up for us. It's 10 terabytes. And when I'm done with a folder of images, so for example, here you'll see raw images for studio session. So that's this one that we're looking at, 176 raw files. They stay on my desktop until I'm done with them. When I'm done with them, the whole thing moves over to the network that I can quickly access, but that's my process for that. So as we see here, this is a session actually with my sister and my niece, and some images of my son snuck in here that I don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and unclick those. We're not going to import those.
And
So
I liked how you mentioned I'm interested in learning more, and maybe I'll connect with you offline about
yeah,
this as
yeah,
far as
yeah.
the network, because I do the same thing as
Mm-hmm.
far as when I start a new project, it all goes on my desktop, and then I go through the whole project, and then I move all of it onto a hard drive. But where I'm at in my journey is I am tired of physical hard drives. And then plus, you
Yes.
have to now have hard drives, back up your hard drives, and things of that nature. And so I'm kind of looking to kind of move into a cloud system because I think that might be a
Yeah.
little bit more efficient.
So this, yeah, that's exactly what I used to do. Um, and then I met this amazing man, and he had a lot of skills that, and like just knowledge that I don't have
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like the actual tech setup. So it still is like a physical hard drive system, but it's a network.
Okay.
So it's like physically set up in our basement, and that's where everything goes. It's huge though, so it's a bit of an investment at first, but it gives us the peace of mind that like it's super secure. It has like double backups. Even when you delete something, he was just telling me, because I was prepping for this, I was like, what happens when you delete files off of it? Because he's like, it's getting full. They stay on for a year, so
Oh,
they go to like
wow.
a trash bin, and then they are deleted only after a year. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I'm just clicking here all the ones that I don't want to bring in. This might happen in a session, or if um I don't know, you photographed over a couple days on the same card, and you know that you only want to bring in a few images. So what I do here, once I have everything selected that I want, is I go and I keyword. So I'm going to keyword with the name. So Laura and Vale Studio session. Okay. And then when I bring them in, I know that I am going to be editing in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So I do use presets. I feel like I used to be kind of like ashamed of this. Like, I don't want to say that I use a preset or I start from a preset, but I do. There are a ton of really good products out there, built by experts, and that it's a starting place. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
final edit. It's just a starting place that really speeds up my workflow. So I'm going to go ahead here and click onto this one that I love, Studio Black and White. And we will start importing. So we've keyworded, we've made it into black and white so that we have a really good place to start. And then we'll see everything filter in here.
Beautiful.
So yeah, a little bit about this. I'll share about the black and white thing. For my retail sessions, and I call them retail because it's, a client directly hiring me. The photos are for personal use. They're not for commercial purposes. They're family photos. They're really special. This is something I've started doing, honestly, more seriously, just after becoming a mother, realizing
Mm-hmm.
that there's such a market for this. And I wanted to offer something that was a little bit different than, like the outdoor field sunset sunflower photography,
Yeah, of course.
which is amazing and also great. But I have this studio. So I was like, how can I use this? And the black and white option keeps things really timeless. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
few reasons why I actually do this. The first is that I find the photos age really well. So in 5 years, a black and white
Mm.
photo is as nice as it was today, or in 10 or in 20. It's just a really timeless approach. It also eliminates what sometimes happens, which is like wardrobe situations that
Mm-hmm.
maybe people are clashing, or they weren't sure what to wear and they're wearing like a pattern that in a few years they're not going to like. It just eliminates that as a problem altogether. So
Oh, yeah, that's actually a
that's
really great
why,
point.
yeah,
I didn't even think
I,
about that.
I know. And like that's something that just from practice I've
Yeah.
learned. It's my most asked question is, what do we wear? And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like, well, you are going to have the images black and white. So it's much less stressful for them to
Mm-hmm.
decide what they're going to wear, what they're going to put their kids in.
Yep.
Alrighty, so here we go. So I'm going to start getting into it here. So the next step is actually culling and deciding which images I'm going to use and why. There's no real trick in terms of like, you really do have to go through each image. I don't have any trick here. Although I know there are AI programs that I'm not using yet. Are you using them?
No, I do the same thing.
Okay.
I just, once I get my photos imported into Lightroom, then I'll go through and I'll decide what I'm actually going to edit. And maybe there is, I've heard of different either programs and stuff that could help with your culling before you get into Lightroom, but it's just what I'm used to as well.
Same. I feel like I once I find something I'm comfortable doing, it's hard to switch, but eventually. Okay, so here I'm going to use the flag tool. So the flag tool is what I use when I am going through. So quick keyboard situation in Lightroom is if you press P when you're in the develop mode here, you will flag an image. And that for me is how I start narrowing things down. So I just will quickly go through the photos and it's just an instinct of, do I like it? Do I not like it? So this one is cute, but maybe Vale's face isn't like, she's doing a little bit of a funny expression. So I'll skip over that one. So I'm going to just quickly go through this. Okay, I love this one. I love the expression of her face and how she's a bit forward and there's really nice light on both of their faces. And again, you can see here, so there's no retouching that's been done yet. So these whites are super blown out, which we're going to fix in a sec. I'm just doing the first round through of deciding which images I like. I like this one. I love this one. Do you have a process for how you cull, Idara? Like,
honestly, no, I really just, especially because when a lot of the times when I'm editing photos, whatever edit I decide on one image is usually the same edit for the rest. And so sometimes if I have the patience, I'll flag. Sometimes I'll just like literally just tap and then like paste. Once I'm like, okay, I want that one, paste, expert, paste, expert, paste, expert. It's probably longer that way. But sometimes I can't really like, there's obviously like photos that I'm like, oh, maybe eyes were closed. Those are kind of things I just take them out or try not to import them in the first place. But sometimes I'm in between images. And so I find that like I might decide on one image and then want to go back and look at the other ones and be like, oh, maybe I don't want this one, I want another one. So I just go through the gallery as a whole and then just kind of edit as I'm going. And then I sometimes have to be careful of that too, because sometimes I end up editing way more than I plan to. But because a lot of the times I'm using a set, especially if I'm shooting in studio, a lot of the times I'm using whatever edit I have for one image is usually good for the entire set with maybe a few adjustments. But I do end up editing quite a bit when I go that way.
Well, I couldn't really relate. And it's quite similar to what similar to what my process is here.
Of course.
I've found like little tricks that do help me. So I'm just going through here. This feels sitting on a stool. So the other thing I wanted to mention is when I'm photographing kids, like these sessions are really short. They're like 12 minutes long. Like I'm shooting really, really fast because kids don't care. If I'm waiting for like some perfect pose, it's just not going to happen. And so there's often more that I'm eliminating than is usual. Like there's definitely going to be blur and motion happening because they're running around. And my focus is like getting the client in and out as quickly as possible so that the experience for them is enjoyable. And then I do all the work in editing to like get it down to those special few. So our goal today is to get down to 15 images. I know that it totally varies in retail sessions and portrait sessions what people end up giving to the client.
Of course.
For these sessions, this is sort of like a sample mini session for me. So they're short and sweet. And once I get down to the 15, I send those to the client and they usually select their 10 that they get.
Mm-hmm.
So they get download access and they can order prints from me. So what I'm sending them today is like the first thing that they see. And it's the web download, like the actual file that they'll get and be able to use digitally. If they order prints, I do further edits in Photoshop and I print from Photoshop.
Mm. How do you, so I don't know if we'll have time to go through that, but I'm interested to see what is your process as far as printing from Photoshop?
So it's a bit of like it's been a big trial and error. So I've integrated printing in the last, like, I'd say 18 months into my process. I have this printer here behind me. It's a Canon Pixma Pro. It's like a good starter printer for the types of images that I'm printing. It prints up to a maximum of 13 inches by 19 inches. For a retail customer, like a family client, they're typically purchasing 5x7s, 4x6s, 8x10s, sometimes a bit bigger, maybe an 11x14, which I can do. So those are the sizes that I have available on the client management system that I do. The reason I print from Photoshop is because as I was testing printing through Lightroom and printing through Photoshop, and this is probably a me problem and nothing to do with the actual product that I'm using, is that the tones were different. So printing from Lightroom, I was getting a different colors were coming out that I didn't like. And I was preferring to like go to Lightroom, export instead of a JPEG, I would export it, of course, as a TIFF, get into Photoshop so I can have more detail to work with for the specific print. But that process is, again, like, I'm still refining it and figuring out. I didn't sell products for a long time because I was never living in one place long enough to like have the whole setup, like get the ink, get the printer, have it set up. Like we moved a lot. So we were on the West Coast and now we're on the East Coast of Canada. Now we're settled because we have kids. So we're like stuck here forever.
What printer do you use, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, this is a Canon Pixma Pro 100. So yeah, Pro-100 Canon. And I bought this used off somebody as a tester. Like,
okay,
before I invest for real, I want to learn how to do something. I know it, it's really good. And obviously there's other things that go into printing, like making sure you have really good paper is, huge.
Huge, yeah.
Ink, the papers probably makes the biggest difference. And so once I outgrow this, because I wanted to integrate it into my business, once I outgrow it, I'll upgrade. That's what I've always done with my cameras as well. Okay, so we're getting here into like my first cull, which, as you see, still too many. It's definitely not 15. So what I'm going to do now is kind of what you were talking about, Idara, what you do. So I'll go into an image and I'm going to actually start editing. Okay, so I can get a better sense of what this is going to look like. First thing that I do is I like to bring everything into a 5x7 crop, so that when clients order images, I prefer to sell 5x7s over 4x6s, just because I like that format better. I have it kind of ready to go. So we're just going to quickly do that. What I did here, this is like kind of my rule of thumb. This rule of thirds here, this top horizontal line, I try to have it at the eyes. That's just, I pretty like a basic composition thing, but it is something I do think about. So I'm going to bring down the whites here because they're too blown out. I'm going to shift this contrast slider back to 0 and see what that gives me.
And we have a question about your printer. Is it a is it a 4 ink cartridge or 6?
Oh no, it's more than that. It
Oh, wow.
is, yeah, it has multiple. I feel like it's like
Oh,
9 or 12 or
oh, wow.
yeah. Sorry, I'm like stuck on the carpet here.
Oh, no.
Um yeah, so it's
It's a lot.
more, it's a lot. It's a lot. If I can get the actual number if I like looked it up or opened it, but I don't want to move too
No,
far
of
away from my
course.
mic here. So other things I'm doing here is lens correction, which is
Hmm.
really important. You'll see, these are like basic things, but sometimes you can forget. So that it fixes the distortion on the
Hmm.
lens. Okay,
Yes.
so I shoot with in studio. Typically, I'm working with my 50 millimeter 1.2, and I shoot on a Canon R5. Um, I'm also down here gonna bring this grain down. So in the preset that I used, it has grain. A little bit of grain is nice. I just don't like a ton. And then, as you can see on this image, and this is going to be the same for all of them, we have like it's more exposed here on the right because this is where my big window is.
Hmm.
There are tinier windows here on the left, but not as much. So I'm going to go in and use a mask. So we're just going to do a linear mask here.
Okay.
So I click on it. What I do is I like to drag it in first where I know I'm going to use it. And
Hmm.
then I use the slider because I want to
Hmm.
see it live.
Absolutely.
There we go. So that feels like a little bit closer to what's happening on the left. I'm going to shift my crop just a touch to come back in here. Okay, so once this is starting to feel like a little bit closer to what I want, sometimes I play around with like, what'll happen if I do that? And I'm not going to do like, you'll see the floor here needs like, we
Hmm.
need to do some cloning down here and some cleaning up, but I'm not going to worry about that right now.
Okay.
So then I do a copy paste, pretty standard. So it's a Control C on your keyboard. I do want to make sure I'm bringing in this mask because I know that every image is going to have this exposure difference from right to left. I'm going to copy. And then I'm going to select only the images here that are on black
Hmm.
because those are the ones I know that are going to be most similar to what I just edited. So we're going to do a Control V, a paste. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that.
Hmm.
Now, I did select all of them. So there's this little thing down here. I'm going to sync it. This
Okay,
is going
perfect.
to apply that edit to all of the images that I just selected. Okay, so they'll get me closer to looking like what the final image might look like. And it's easier for me to now go through and select.
Hmm.
So some of them, again, like they're not perfect. It takes a second for Lightroom to load. Like I can tell some of these crops I'm going to have to go through. But for the purpose of moving things along, let's head over to this different background scenario. So in my studio, I have seamless backdrops attached and connected to the wall.
Hmm.
So I can pull them up and down easily. And this is just like the actual wall in the studio. I've
How
been
long have you had
configuring.
your studio space for? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, since we moved into this house, so
Ah.
2021, but really it was like the fall of 2021 was when it was ready.
Hmm.
Yeah, so not that long. I mean, I used to rent space wherever I was
Hmm.
and lug gear, and that's actually why I didn't have a lot of extras. Like I didn't have a printer that I was lugging around because it
Hmm.
just was too much work. Um, these are like little things. I'm gonna like try
Yeah,
to
we're gonna
just
clean those
quickly
up.
stamp that out. And again here, so kind of the opposite thing is happening on this image. As you can see on the left, it's feeling a bit dark. And I could be shooting with lights. So in this studio, that's a possibility. However, with kids, I don't. I have enough natural light to work pretty comfortably. And I find once I add lights, it feels cramped. I'm afraid that kids are going to knock stuff over. It just feels like a less kid-friendly space, and it changes the whole environment because it feels quite stiff. So I've decided not to, and it works totally fine. When I'm doing portrait sessions for some clients, I'm going to go over to my mask here and get another linear gradient. When I'm working with portrait clients, an adult, it's totally different because they'll sit in a chair. They'll sit in a chair for as long as I tell them to. There's kids like do not care.
That makes total sense.
Again here, so I'm gonna do a copy, and I'm gonna then apply it to all of the images that have this background. So I'm gonna sync it up. Now I know I'm gonna have to go through here and crop stuff. That's okay, because it's everything that I'm doing. These quick things are getting me just closer, quicker.
Yep.
Okay, so now I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna fix some of these crops because I know that they're not perfect or working.
And real quickly while you do that, so another question about the printer.
Oh my God. I love it.
Can you remind us, what Canon model was it?
It's the Canon Pixma Pro, Pixma-Pro 100.
Perfect. There you go, Robert. Hopefully you can make note of that. I'm going to have to go back to the Live-In for that for two.
I am so not like a printer expert, so it's, hilarious that that's what people want to know. So good. Okay, so I'm gonna get these into some just a bit closer to what I actually want. So again, I do think about printing when I'm editing as well. So here, some of these whites are just a little white. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping some of that texture so that when if the client goes to purchase, we have, we don't have anything that's like super, super blown out. So the best tool for that, I find, is to just shift my whites over a bit so they just become a bit more gray. And then for something like this, I might actually come in a bit tighter.
And then we have another question for you. It's from YouTube. And it says, I would love to have an at-home studio. Do you guys have a built-in one, or was the space already there?
Awesome question. No, so this is something we built in our backyard, and we don't have a huge property. We are in like a semi-suburb. And yeah, we built it. It's not huge, so it's like 12 feet by 16 feet. And it's sort of set back onto the left side of the backyard. There's a fence that people can walk through. And then we have sliding doors to enter it. But yeah, I mean, it's been a huge game changer. I realize feasibility. It's not even something I ever imagined being able to have. But we moved closer to family, and they helped us kind of get set up, because once I had my son, honestly, renting space elsewhere, lugging gear, meeting clients, everything just becomes harder to do when you have especially little kids around. So yeah, it's really changed my business.
Yeah, that's one of the goals that I have for myself. I really want an at-home studio because, right now I'm doing the same thing. I'm renting out spaces and I'm traveling, and it's nice to have clients come to you, and it's nice to have your own space that you can just kind of, where everything is. It's your own equipment. And so sometimes I'm just like, I'm kind of tired of always going to all these studios.
I know. But you know what, Idara, I will say, everywhere I was, I mean, I lived in Vancouver on the West Coast for 6 years. We were in Montreal for a year before we were in Ottawa. Everywhere I've gone, I've made it work. Like I either had a space that I rented, even part-time, like just a few times a week. And so then those would be my client days. Or if my apartment was big enough, I would like rent, I would use, let's say, the brightest, biggest room in the apartment and make it feel kind of like an at-home studio.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I did the same thing with my old apartment as well. You can really turn any space into, especially when you have natural light coming in, you can really turn any space into a studio.
Totally. Like I think I mean, of course it's nice now. What the best part about the studio is that it's separate from the house. So it really does feel like a client space versus like welcoming somebody into your home. But I did that for years. And you just have to make it work because that's what you have access to. A lot of the images in my portfolio, like on my website, were like taken in my little Vancouver apartment in the small room that had the best light. So like no shame in just figuring out what you got to do to make it work. Okay, so this is like one of my favorites and I know I'm gonna use it, so I'm gonna just pop it in. There's something about kids who suck their thumb that is like so cute.
Oh.
Yeah, she's pretty sweet. Okay, so I'm like going through and making little tweaks here quickly on images that I know I love. So how are we doing for time, Idara?
We are good. We are about maybe almost 40 minutes into the live stream. So almost our halfway mark.
Okay, that's good. So I think what I'm gonna do, because I know these ones down here I haven't really worked with yet. Okay, so something else that will definitely do for a lot of these is, so this is one thing about the studio I don't love. This line, the cement line. So these lines in the cement are so that the cement over time, if it gets cold, we have really harsh winters here, it doesn't crack.
Okay.
But it's an editing situation.
Yes.
So we're going to go over here to our healing tool and I'm going to try a couple things and just see what works best. So first I'm going to use the little Band-Aid guy and like literally see what it does. I love seeing like, okay, see, that's not great. Not great. But if I dragged it down, it could work. However, it might be better to do. Let's see here. Okay, this is like, yeah, much better. Okay. So
you switched over. What was the change that you made?
Sorry, I'm like, yeah, the content aware one. So the content aware one is, I find better for situations that it might be a little bit more complicated. Like it's trying to understand what's happening here with the dress versus the clone or healing stamp. So for things like little spots like this is better. This is the Band-Aid heal. This is the heal. This is the clone. The content aware. Now, did it switch over? Yeah, it switched over. Okay. So sorry, I'm gonna go back. Fix that. Hold on. I gotta retrace my steps here a little bit. Yeah, and like these are things that I'm doing here in Lightroom that, depending on your comfort level, you might feel better off bringing image into Photoshop, but I don't want to do that when I'm working quickly on images like this. So, oh, why does it keep, oh, because I keep clicking a different thing. That's my fault. Okay, then I gotta click enter and I gotta move on. There we go. If I want another one, I'm gonna go out, go in. Sorry, not my mask. I need this. And then like, let's just see what happens once I start cleaning up the floor. I mean, images look much better. Okay, so I'm gonna close that. Sorry, there's just a little lag on my end because I'm going fast.
No, you are good.
There we go. Yeah, so just to give you an example, like I do that level of, I don't want this line here for the client. That's not something that typically, sometimes it depends. Sometimes it doesn't bother me as much depending on like the pose or whatever, but for the most part, I'll remove it. Okay, so then these few last ones we haven't touched yet. So I'm gonna go in and do that. I made this little like backdrop. So with I don't know, what are those called? Birthday. What are those? Like that background that I'm using, these like little flowy paper things in all different colors. They were in pastel colors. Here, if I could like reset this image, you can see it. It looked like that.
Did you already have the I don't know, like the paper streamers up?
The streamers, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
No, I made those. I made that for this minis day.
Oh.
For people. Yeah. And then of course, like after the third kid came in, they were destroyed. But they looked cute in pastel. Okay, so I'm going to do some straightening here. But for the most part, I'm not going to like worry too much because I don't want to take too much time. So again, anything that was like the same scene or set or background, I'm editing one image, copying and pasting to the other. And then making individual tweaks that I see fit. So again, we have this little, like we have a gradient on the left, sorry, on the right, that's feeling darker than on the left. Although in this image, it doesn't bother me because it adds a little bit of, I feel like, depth to have, like the background isn't one wall, so I don't mind it at all.
Okay,
that's a creative, like,
creative
decision.
Choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same here. And these are like a little bit darker, but I kind of like them. I'm gonna just brighten a touch and make sure I'm getting into a 5x7. Yeah. She's holding a cookie. The tricks that you use to get kids to like.
So that's I think that's because I don't shoot kids for that reason. I don't take pictures of kids for that exact reason because
it's hard.
It's very, very difficult. Of course, I've done like, maybe children of some of my friends and stuff like that, but I've just getting them to just sit still and focus and look at the camera. So I'm always interested in like tips and tricks to do so. And a cookie makes sense.
A cookie makes sense. And I worked with kids a little bit before I had my own, but I really only felt confident doing this and like really diving into it after I had my own kids. So that's why these sessions are really long. Like they're 30 minutes max, because a lot of times, even before booking, parents will say like, I just don't even know if it's worth it because I don't know what, like, if they're going to cooperate at all. So they don't want to make that investment right away. Where, I can say to them, listen, I get it. I don't, there's any, like, my son is super, super active. And but yeah, cookies work, and changing what you're doing a lot. So like getting them on a stool, getting them to stand on a block, getting them to give their mom a kiss, getting their parents to pick them up. That's why like I move through so fast. I'm shooting so fast that this process has become especially important because I have to spend a lot of time afterwards making sure that I have enough good content, but also that I'm like getting rid of what's blurry. Like there's definitely more of a leeway. I have to be more forgiving with myself in the session as I'm shooting, because I just
Mm-hmm.
have to get through it quickly.
Makes sense. Makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
But as I've learned, I did a lot of like practicing with, like, before I opened up myself to actually market that I was going to do these sessions. I invited a bunch of friends who have kids, and I did a test day. So I did 20-minute sessions, and I did them back to back. I think I had like 8 or 10 different people come through back to back to see if I could shoot quickly and get enough quality content to be able to sell. And that's kind of how I developed this process, was just like a lot of trial and error.
So,
okay.
And real quickly, Alexa, we are hitting the halfway point for our stream today, and I want to just make a couple of quick announcements just real quickly. If you guys would love to nominate yourself or someone you know to be a guest on Adobe Live, submit your recommendations. There is a button above the chat that says guest recommendations, so you can submit yourself, your friends. So just go ahead and do that. We always love to get new talent here on Adobe Live. And then, as well as Adobe's Teresa Wu has conversations with some of the people who make up the rapidly expanding creative economy, including Puno of Design Studio, an educational platform I Love Creatives, illustrator, author Misha, and many more to come. So you want to make sure that you subscribe now to follow along the full season at adobe.ly/in the making. If we could drop the link, that'll be great. Or find the show whenever you see it whenever you do see it, listen it to any podcast, whether that's on Apple, Spotify. You can find the podcast there as well. And if y'all have any questions, please do drop them in the chat. We are about halfway through our live stream today, and I do have a question here for you as well, Alexa. So whenever you're ready for it.
Go ahead.
Perfect. How many photos do you end up shooting in 30-minute sessions, in your studio sessions?
That's a really good question. Okay. It can be anywhere from, like, if we have a super cooperative toddler, for example, or, you know, a kid under 1, so an infant who's not walking yet is also really easy to shoot because they aren't moving around. So I'd say anywhere from like 300 to 500 images, maybe pushing 600, but in something that's one of my shorter sessions, I'd say like 300 to 500. And I know that's a big range, but I feel like once you get over 300, it doesn't really make a difference anyways. It's like the same amount of work. But that's a good question.
Beautiful.
I used to try. So I also shoot, like, for more of my personal work, a lot of film. I work with a lot of 35 millimeter and 120, and on rolls of 35 millimeter film, you have 36 frames. So I used to have this idea of being like, what can I get in 36 frames with a digital camera? But you can't stop yourself.
It's very true.
It's like impossible.
Yep. And we have another question here. I love when the chat is so active. It is such a beautiful thing seeing all the questions. So our other question says, how many photos do you typically deliver to a client for a session, and how do you deliver them?
Okay. This is good, because this is part of what I'm talking about today, and why I'm talking about, I had made a mental note earlier to mention this, but like, why am I doing, so today in this session, we went from like, 175 images, we're going to go down to 15. And then I'm going to send those to the client. The client gets 10. That's in a mini session.
Okay.
In my standard studio session, so when somebody books me on like, their own time and not on a day where I'm doing minis, because that's sort of a special discounted rate, I give 25 images from a studio portrait session. I know that, well, I don't know, because what I'm doing, in this market for families, because I'm in a studio, it's a little bit different. Because we're not outside, we're not walking around, the environment isn't changing that much. I feel like 25 is plenty. Like, the point of doing a studio portrait session is that the images you're getting are a bit more, They're like, you know, an ode to the classic portrait makers from before our time. So that's like where I get the inspiration from to work in the studio. I do have a different type of session that is a documentary family session, and those I do either at people's homes or outside.
Oh, wow.
And in that session, I give 125 because I spend an hour with the family, either at their house, doing whatever they do, making dinner, playing in the backyard, walking to the park. It's a totally different type of session.
Yeah.
But yeah, the studio ones on a minis day, I give 10. And in the regular session, it's 25.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And then one more question, and then we can keep moving forward. And y'all keep dropping your questions in the chat. And so this person wanted to ask, and it's probably also a good point to kind of give a quick recap of what we've talked about thus far, because this person joined a little bit late. But they wanted to know, why do you choose to work on a desaturated format? And so why do you choose, basically, I guess, to shoot in your black and white? What does that mean? Yeah. What does that mean for you?
Yeah. Okay, so I did cover this, but I'm super happy to go over it again because it is a very specific choice I'm making. So for this type of session, which is specifically for families in the studio, I'm wanting to achieve a final product that feels very much like a timeless portrait. Back in the day, there wasn't color film. So we started with black and white film, and before we had color as an option. And so I'm kind of leaning onto those, like something that is going to age over time well. This is just what I think. It's just my process. And like, it might not work for everybody.
Yeah.
But that's why I make that choice. And it's also a bit of a, like I had said to you, Dara, when the most common question I get is, what do I wear? And one of the things that takes the pressure off for people being so nervous about picking the right outfit is saying, just a reminder, everything's going to be in black and white when it's delivered to you. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, that's right. It also eliminates something that, you know, happens where if you're picking an outfit and it has like a trendy pattern on it, like maybe in 5 years you look at that picture and you're like, oh, I don't like that shirt anymore.
Yeah.
But once we've moved it into black and white, there's some kind of transformation that happens that makes it feel really, really timeless and classic.
Yeah, of course.
And my hope is that, like, you know, these are photos that are left over for like your grandkids and people who will look at them in many, many, many years. And I wanted to make them feel classic. I give people the option to purchase in color.
Oh, okay.
I do. Yeah, I have like all of these add-ons that people can. I never want anyone to feel limited. So when you get 10, you can see a bunch more and you can purchase those as well. You can purchase additional. You can do a gallery buyout. You can have me make everything into color. I just charge fees for that.
No, that makes sense, because then you have to now go back into Lightroom, convert everything, make sure that the adjustments are what you want. And then, okay, that makes sense.
But like about 20% of people are interested in color images, so they'll end up getting both. They'll get the 10 in black and white, and then they'll get the 10
in color as well.
In color as well. Yeah. I hope that answers that question for that.
No, person. It did. Thank you so much for going over that again, and for sharing that. And so if there's any other questions from the stream, please do ask them. I'm going to be looking out for any additional questions, but Alexa, I think we're good to keep moving forward for now.
Okay, great. So I'm just doing like final tweaks. And then what I am going to do now is start getting to the actual 15. So I'm going to start from the beginning and going through and deciding which I want to keep. So something I do that helps me decide. So I know I'm looking at these. We have Vale sitting on a stool, mom's beside her. So there's the same situation happening here, just different expression. So what I typically do is I pull them all up. So I'm going to highlight them. I'm going to click N, which lets me see everything all together. And then I can more easily compare. I'm just going to drag my little...
And you say that you highlighted them all and you clicked N?
Yeah, I clicked N, which is like the survey tool, which allows you to see things all together. It's not like the before and after, which is the Y quick keyboard thing. Okay, so when I'm looking at these, I want to choose kind of like one that is the best. And I have a little cheat sheet down here of like the ones that I do end up liking the best. I think it's this one because of her little expression and the smile. So then I just end up unflagging. So I click a U. I get rid of them. Sometimes when there's something that I particularly love, regardless of if the client selects it or not, I give it a 5-star. So I love this one so much. I love how mom's looking at her and I love Vale's expression. So I give it a 5-star, which is like a secondary rating that when I want to come back to Lightroom and let's say I'm sharing on Instagram, I'm promoting about these sessions, I will filter down here from my liked images and pull and edit based on that. So it's just something I do like in the process so that later on I have some of that work done for me. Okay, so this one I love, this one I love, and I'm going to keep. This one I think is a little too similar to the others, so I'm going to get rid of it. And same with this one, although it is really sweet, but we have this one, so we're going to get rid of this guy. Okay, so then we are down to 2. I like this edit a little bit better, so I'm going to go copy, paste. Okay, I'm going to replace what I had already done and put it here. Okay, I see. So I just need to make individual changes to this. I'm going to lower the exposure just a touch. I'm going to bring my weights down. Okay, so same thing that I just did there, I'm going to do here. So I kind of just repeat this process. And I'm looking down here also at some file numbers because I wanted to make sure that I selected the ones for our baking show, Idara, that I have queued up in my next little catalog.
Oh my goodness.
So I did say like this, we're going to do this in under 60 minutes. And for the most part, when you get really good at this, and if you're not like paying attention to somebody who's live with you and answering questions, because I'm like a little bit distracted and I'm stopping a lot of what I'm doing on the screen to talk. It would take you between 60 and 90 minutes, I'd say. Maybe 90 when you're getting started, but you'll be able to get through it pretty quickly. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of some of these that I know. I think I liked this one best.
Yeah, that one is really beautiful.
44, yeah, 42.
And then we have another question as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. This question says, do you sort your images you want for your website too?
Yeah, so great question. So in Lightroom Classic, we know that we can have one catalog open at a time. So when I go to update my website, I want to have access to all of my 5-star images in one place. So yes, that's another reason why I also rate. So my 5-star rating is something that I love that I might want to come back to that might end up on my website. So are the flagged images, because it does cut down a ton from the raws. But yes, I actually work from a master catalog for Lightroom Classic, which I know is like maybe taboo.
I was going to ask that if you worked from like a master catalog or if you had like individual catalogs per project or what works best for you.
Sometimes. So my personal work is in a separate catalog. So like my failure to progress project is all one thing. My client work is in the master. Sometimes depending on the project, if it's huge and it needs its own place to live, I create a catalog for it depending on, if it's like a multi-day shoot for a commercial client, big commercial client, I'll make, their own catalog. But for the most part, for stuff like this, for family sessions, I'm working from one master.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that took like kind of years to figure out that was going to make sense for me. It's mostly like what that person asked about when you're then updating your portfolio. I don't want to open 30 catalogs.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to see things here together on my screen.
Makes sense.
If that makes sense.
sense.
And
No,
then
it
when
does
you
make
use
sense.
these tools, like when you're using keywords and you can pull up your studio sessions or your family sessions, that's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
how you can start narrowing things down or seeing how things look together as if you were putting them into your portfolio.
Lovely. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, this one I definitely know I want to keep. Idara, I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
What do you do with all of your raw files? So not like how you store them, but do you delete?
I don't delete. And I don't know if I've gone back and forth with this just because I don't know. I've learned, and I don't know if I'm the only one here in this room, but I'm a bit of a hoarder. and,
Yeah.
And so I have like a fear of like once I delete something and it's gone, that like if for whatever reason, whether that was maybe I shot something, even like sometimes I have clients that I shoot with and it's just a portrait session, but there's maybe one photo that I really liked and wanted to go back to, or if for whatever reason somebody comes back to me, I just like having everything. A lot of the times, especially when you like I'm the kind of photographer where I shoot, my hand stays on that trigger. I just be bursting. And so I usually have, it's not like, oh, I just have 100 images. I usually have that 300, 500 images from a session. And so I don't need all of that, but I usually just save it just in case for whatever reason it's needed again. Okay. So that's what I do. And so I'm interested to hear if you do the same or if you just delete and move on since you've already provided the images to your clients, or you've also already selected what you wanted to edit as well, or what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So I used to keep everything.
And
then we set up this home network system. And I realized like there's probably a lot that I'm keeping that I don't actually need, even though I have that same feeling of you of like wanting to hoard. So what I try to do now is when I shot from like a session on a card, before I even bring stuff into Lightroom, I'm looking at what's on the card and getting, oops, sorry. I hope that wasn't too loud. I hit my mic. I'm getting rid of stuff. So I'm actually deleting it, like it's gone. And I didn't used to do that before. I used to keep every single thing. So it's not like it's a ton. I'm eliminating stuff I know I definitely don't want.
Of course, yeah.
But maybe it's like 20% of the shoot is just like unusable. Eyes are closed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. Blur where I don't want it. Weird expressions. But yeah, even still, I have too many raw files. So yeah, I'm always curious what other people are doing because I know it's like.
Yeah, I think for me, I do. I know for sure for like, I think I agree as far as if there's like eyes closed, stuff like that, I do get rid of those because you can't use that regardless. For personal projects, even after I think more so for personal projects for sure, I don't delete because I've had situations where I'm like, I didn't like a photo or I didn't use a photo for some reason. And then a year later, I'm like interested in going back and I'm like, I like to go back and like re-edit photos and things of that nature to see how I've grown in my editing style as well. And so sometimes I'll find those, but I have found that like a lot of the times for sessions I do for clients, I don't need those images again. And once I deliver the images to them anyway, they don't need anything from me. It's just if they ever come back, it's like, oh, I accidentally deleted the download of the final images you sent me. Can you resend them to me? And I keep everything on, saved in that case. But
that's the classic.
Exactly. That's exactly the classic client that comes back like a year and a half later. Like, do you still have my session from?
I know you said it was going to expire. And
I know.
Save it, but do you have
it? So I think what I want to adopt that style of like getting rid of what I don't need because it is taking up space. on a lot of hard drives that I don't need for that reason. Christian put in here, whenever I do a test, I make backups at the beginning, one directly from the camera to the computer where I'm going to work. Two, I keep backup files on external SSD for about 2 to 3 months. And then after the selection process, I clean it up, leaving only the best ones and leaving the majority that have some kind of salvage. I like that.
Yeah,
because
that's really good.
that is really, really good. I'm actually going to take a screenshot of that comment.
What was his name? Christian?
Christian, yes.
Christian, you're
yes.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, you are right. Because I really think that's like a good frame of thinking, like back up everything, maybe keep the backup files for that 2 to 3 months and then go back, clean up, be done. I really love that. I think I'm going to implement it.
That's really good. And that's kind of what I was talking about of like where I keep my files. So they're on my desktop when it's working. And for me, like a working format is once the client has said and chosen and I've delivered finals, it's no longer working. It can go into a backup situation because then I upload it into a client management software tool that's hosted online that I know the client has access to it. So I can then go clean it off of my my actual hard drive so that it's not taking up my working power on my computer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christian. I really do appreciate that.
That was really good.
And it was just broken up so nicely. It was just easy. 1, 2, 3, bam.
Yeah, he's like, this is what I do. Okay, so I'm just getting down here to my like final images. And again, like, it's hard for me to choose. I'm like, I like both. I want to, do both. But in terms of time, you don't always have time to do both. So I'm going to pick the one actually where she's looking up. People might disagree. That's all right. That's part of what this is. So again, pulling these up, a bit distracted because we're chatting, but I'm learning a lot. This is great. Yeah. And like, I know I don't think I explicitly said this, but like, this is my process. So this is like, it works for me, my business, my client goals. It's not, it's by no means the right way, the perfect way. It evolves with me as my business changes.
Absolutely.
And I will say that this is for a mini session, but when I'm doing fuller sessions, I'm sending the client more than 15 to look at. I'm more likely sending the client 50 to 75, and then they're choosing their 25. So I'm doing this process that'll take a little bit longer, but it's still the exact same process that I use.
How are you, and I think this is a question that I just thought of, how are you sending it to the client in those different stages? Are you using a platform to send the first 50? How are they selecting? Like, what does that process look like as far as setting it, letting them choose the 10, 15 that they want, and that way you can go back and finalize that for them?
Totally. So I'm using a client management software tool called PixieSet. And PixieSet is the interface. So it's the between me and the client. It's how I do everything. Everything's managed through PixieSet. I've been using PixieSet pretty much as long as I've used Lightroom Classic. My process has stayed the exact same. Depending on the type of client, I will say for some editorial clients, I'm sometimes hesitant to send through PixieSet because I used to be. I feel like now it's like, it's all one thing. And a lot of photographers are more open about their cross-genre reality to make a living. And so, yeah, that's what I use. And I'm actually going to show you at the end here, once we get close to the end, that there is a Lightroom plugin to PixieSet that has completely changed the game for me. It used to be a super manual process. Once a client selected things, I was getting like emails and screenshots and these are my images, and I'm like, this is really annoying and hard. But now the two programs, Adobe Lightroom Classic, PixieSet, they completely integrate. Yeah, it's actually probably the most handy situation that I've like. It's the one thing that has made it all that much easier. Absolutely. That the two programs are now talking to each other.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm excited to see that. And we have
Yeah.
about, let's say 15, 16 more minutes left in the stream.
Okay,
And so
perfect.
we're getting into that time as well.
Okay, we're getting into that time. Perfect. So like of these three, I'm gonna choose this one here just because I like her expression the most. I like how she's standing. Okay, these three. So I'm getting through here and making sure we get I'm giving the client as much variety as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm choosing the best of. Again, like I said, I would show them more if this wasn't a mini session.
Mm-hmm.
But for the purposes of this, we're going to give them 15. So I'm going to keep this guy here.
Now, when you send them, because you said you'll get this down to 15 and they choose 10, correct?
Yeah.
If they want to, like, say, like, oh, I can't pick it all, I want all of them, do you allow them to purchase the other 5 at a certain rate? Okay.
Of course. Of course.
It's like, why not?
Yeah, that's part of what I've that's part of like my package offerings and what I've learned as a part of this process. When I limit what I feel is the value for what they've paid for the session, I create a sense that there's value in each image. Each image is taking work, each image is being edited, each image is being stored and paid for somewhere, and that there's all of these costs that go into the number of images that we work with. And yeah, I think that was something too in one of the slides that I did want to go over. So I think that if it makes sense, let me just highlight here and see. Okay, I got down to my 15. Beautiful. So this is great. So I've selected 2 here that I really, really love that I might, use to promo later on. 5-starred those. Everything else is flagged. Now, for the purposes of like this live stream, there are tweaks that I've skipped over that I'm going to close this catalog, bring us to a finished catalog, and we can look at that.
Beautiful. Awesome. And if y'all have any other questions as we start to wind down and get into the last 10, 15 minutes of the stream, if you have any other questions, be sure to drop them in the chat so that way we can get them answered. This has been really, really active. I love how when the chat is popping with questions. It's really, really nice. So thank y'all so much for participating and just being here the entire time.
Okay. So yeah, I really appreciate the questions. They're super helpful. And, I also am here to learn. I'm always learning. So
same.
Yeah. Here's my final 15. We can just quickly flip through them. So we'll see which ones were selected. So I did a variety, some of Veil on her own, Mom and Veil, standing, sitting, different backdrops. So I try to really think like the client of what they would want. And then the next step here is to export. So I'm going to show you the export process. So there is a plugin for the client management tool that I use called Pixie Set. That's not the only one. There are tons. This is just the one that I use. I don't have it set up in here because I'm not going to actually show you that because I don't actually use it for my own purposes, and I'll tell you why. So here, this you can publish directly to your Pixie Set gallery. So it'll go directly to the cloud, to their software system. I like to have the actual files myself on my hard drive because I use them eventually. So instead of duplicating the process, I don't find this like process too difficult or too labor intensive. And then it saves me having to go back at a later date. So what I do is I always go back to where I have the raw images. I create a new folder. I call it finals. In this scenario, I'll call it finals, but I might call it proofs if there's more and the client is selecting which you know, I'm kind of just quickly skipping over that. So I'm going to choose that. For the purposes of this tutorial, I want to talk about something really important. So I'm not going to change the file name right now, specifically because once I upload it into Pixieset and the client goes and selects what they want, I want the same file name so I can come back to Lightroom and look it up. So I'm just going to keep the file name. I'm going to make it 12 inches on the long edge here, resolution 300 DPI. I am going to, you know, this is something it's like, do we use it? Do we not use it? I know there's a lot of like, do you use the output sharpening?
I don't.
You don't?
I
Okay.
don't.
Sometimes I use it if I know they might end up, like if this was for printing, for
Of course,
example.
yeah, that's true.
For now, I'm just going to click screen, but I feel like there's debate about whether or not to use these kind of built-in situations. So we're going to go and export that. And then as we're doing that, I will pop over to my Pixieset and show you, because now I'm just going to quickly show you how it integrates. Okay.
Perfect.
So here it is. I have the Studio Family Portraits gallery up here. I'm going to bring the files in. It's getting darker earlier over here. So I know that they're here. So they're exporting. It won't take super long, but I'm going to upload them as they come in.
Yeah, I really love Pixieset. I use this. I've interchanged between Pixieset and PicTime.
Yeah,
but
that's the other main one.
But they're really just great to. I just love the look it gives it for the clients when they get their email that says your photos are ready and they can go through a beautiful gallery. I think it adds a really great delivery experience for them.
Totally. What's going on here? What's not loading? Let's see. My iCloud is. I think I actually have them elsewhere, so I'm gonna go just in case this happened. I did. Final images. Yeah.
Beautiful.
There they are. Look at me, so organized.
I know, so organized and staying ready.
I was like trying to think of all. Oh, of course, Pixieset. No. It's okay. We're gonna make it work. It might be a Pixieset issue. That's not good airtime for them, is it? Okay, let's try again. It says there's 15 photos. Oh my goodness. Oh. Okay, that's all right. Anyways, let's check back in a sec to see if this loads. That's too funny. Okay, well, of course.
Of course. But we can come back to it in a few minutes if need be.
Are there any other questions or things that I can answer? I feel like we have, how much time do we have left? A few minutes?
We have about 8 minutes left. Yep. And so, yeah, about 8 minutes left. Okay. Christian said that always happens in live. Yep, it does.
I know. I'm like, literally, I use this program every single day. Never have an issue. Okay, look, they're coming in. They're coming in. Even if I just get a few, just to illustrate what happens, that'd be great. So while this loads, this is the back end. So what you're seeing here is the back end for me. I'm going to go to the client view. Okay, so this is what the client would see. So the client now is at the stage where they are going to pick favorites. Okay, so let's say they're picking their 10. Like I said, there's this little heart icon. We're going to create a little favorites list here. Let's say this one, that one, and this guy. Okay, so maybe nothing's going to work in Pixieset.
Oh no.
It's all right. Let me, there might be a way around this. It might just not be loading. Okay. Hey, we got one photo.
There we go.
There we go. So we have one photo over here. So I'm going to go back to my back end. where I see it. And okay, and of course it's not loading, but basically what you do is when you go back to the basically my interface as the photographer, there is a copy paste. So essentially you are copying a Lightroom list, you're bringing it back into Lightroom, and this is super handy. Like with one photo it doesn't make that much of a difference, but when the client selects 30, I can go here and I do Control F. I use my little finder, okay? And if I was to take the filters off of this, Control F, okay, and then like imagine that it was, oh no, because I couldn't copy it from, oh come on, Pixie Set. Let's see, here we go. Here's the back end, okay? This is what I wanted to show you. Back end, my favorites. So over here, 3 little dots, Lightroom copy list. It's right there. This is like, of course. There it is. Oh my God, we got it. We really stumbled through this, Pixie Set, but I was wanting to sing your praises. Here we go. So then I copy that. I bring it back into Lightroom. I copy paste. There's my image. Now that I know it seems like so simple, but when you have, 500 images that you're going through and the client is, for example, editorial assignments, they want to see everything. They don't want me to only send 15. They probably want to see most of what I shot. And then they'll pick the final, whatever, 7 to 10. Sometimes it's 1, 2, 3. This just really speeds it up instead of having to, open an image, open a screenshot, look at it, of course, figure out if it's the right one. Like you just know. So that's a little trick that I wanted to show everybody.
Thank you so much for showing that. I think that's really helpful. I know that's something that I'll take away because I didn't even know that it creates that list for you. So that is so great for me. And we're getting towards, we have about 4 or 5 minutes left in the stream. Okay. So we're about to start to prepare to close and kind of summarize what we talked about. But I do have 2 questions I want to give to you real quickly, and then we'll get to our closing. The first one is, how do you find your clients?
Oh man. Yeah. Like word of mouth. Social media marketing, man. Like that's what it is.
Yep.
Instagram, Facebook, making sure people have a really positive client experience and they recommend their friends. It's a slow build if you're just starting. But it like a snowball effect. Over years, it grows and your name gets passed along. But yeah, I mean, my main tool is social media.
Beautiful. Yeah. And then last question, wouldn't you prefer to post the photos you took of the most problematic, wouldn't you prefer to post the photos you took of the most problematic ones and let the client select them, then work on them?
I don't know if I understand the question. Why?
What I'm understanding, I think, is, do you prefer to like maybe give them before you, because it looks like you kind of select, you edit, and then you share, you let them choose. Do you ever like, once you make that 50 selection, like once you kind of, do you ever like share those? And then once they're like, oh, these are my 15, then you edit the 15 that they want you to edit, opposed to you picking the 15. That's how I'm interpreting the question.
Yes. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Yes. For the purposes of this live, I wanted to speed this up and kind of show my, start to finish process. And it depends. With minis, like I don't necessarily want to, like, basically they're saying, wouldn't you want to send the client images that are less final? You spend less time editing them beforehand. Yes, but also I really want the client to like that photo the first time they see it. So I'm making sure that what they're looking at, they want to buy. And sometimes that just does require that extra step up front. That's something that I've thought about and learned over time.
Awesome. Well, thank you for answering that. You're welcome. we are getting to our closing. So Alexa, if you can quickly summarize in about a minute, minute and a half, and just kind of provide your, how people can find you, etc. That will be great.
Okay, yeah, this has been great. So a little bit of what we went over. I did an intro, talked a little bit about me, the importance of personal projects. Then we got into the tutorial from camera to client. So I brought in a full session called Use the Organizational Tools of Lightroom Classic. And we did that all in about an hour. Why this project? So for me, being confident in my workflow has increased my ability to take on more clients because I know I can handle 5 sessions a week. Whereas a few years ago, when I didn't have such an efficient workflow, that was harder. So at the end of the day, this is, me being able to make more money for my family. You saw me select the 15 best images. And then edit them using the batch edit tools. We did, crop, exposure, healing, masks, why I want to get to a black and white image, why I'm editing in and cropping to a 5:7 format. And then I quickly showed you how I link up Pixieset, my client management software.
Lovely.
And then this is where you can find me quickly.
Yes.
On Instagram. So I have my my personal commercial portfolio, which is just my name, Alexa Mazzarello. And then I have separated out just recently my Alexa Mazzarello family work, which is what we talked a little bit about today. Last one here is the gallery and that community there.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexa, for that. And thank you so much, Jack, for dropping Alexa's website. Make sure y'all go ahead and follow her. And also make sure that you stay tuned for our new show called The Weekday Edit with Arabella Espinazo and El Mott from The Weekend Creative as they chat about how to start a photography business while using Lightroom Classic and Photoshop to edit a personal project. Until next time, we will see y'all then. But thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.